Coming live from Washington, D.C., this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for watching another episode of All Sports. This is your host, Gerardo. So right now I'm out here in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is the United States capital. So right now I'm in our nation's capital, here at Nationals Park, right behind me. Nationals Park is located here in Washington, D.C. It's very close to the United States Capitol and to the Washington Monument. Nationals Park is also home of the Nationals. The Montreal Expos relocated here to Washington, D.C., and they became the Nationals. So before 2005, the Nationals used to be the Montreal Expos, and they played up in Canada at the stadium in Montreal. And then the Expos relocated here to Washington, D.C. in 2005, and the Expos became the Nationals. Now, the Nationals didn't start playing here right away in 2005. They actually had to wait until 2008 for Nationals Park right behind me to be built. Even though the Expos came here in 2005 and became the Nationals, they had to play at another ballpark until Nationals Park was ready in 2008. So they broke ground for Nationals Park in May of 2006, and it opened in March of 2008. Nationals Park has a seating capacity of over 41,300 seats. Nationals Park hosted the 2018 Major League All-Star Game last year, and it hosted the 2015 NHL Winter Classic. So Nationals Park is just over 10 years old, and it's hosted different types of events, and it's also had the Nationals here for over 10 years. The Expos were happy when they relocated here to Washington, D.C. and became the Nationals, and they wanted to start a new chapter of baseball here in Washington, D.C. Now, this ain't the first time that Washington, D.C. had a baseball team. Before the Expos became the Nationals, Washington, D.C. used to have the Washington Senators, so baseball was here in the past, but in 2005, baseball returned back here to Washington, D.C., and they became the Nationals. So the Nationals are definitely looking forward to a new chapter of baseball here in Washington, D.C. Now, if you look right behind me is Nationals Park, and this is actually home plate. But up and down this walkway, they got different statues right in front of me, and right behind me, there's 3 different statues that represent these 3 individual players. But if you start from the bottom of the walkway and work your way up towards the home plate gate, you can see that there's years. It starts from down there and it goes all the way up. They also got the plaques here on the right side, right behind me. All these years here represent something that's unique to when the Washington Senators played here, the Montreal Expos, and even the Washington Nationals. So all these years represent something unique that the Senators, the Expos, or the Nationals did throughout their history. So if you come out to Nationals Park here in Washington, D.C., there's one thing I gotta recommend to you. You definitely need to come out here to Nationals Park, but you also need to check out Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is the United States capital, and there's a lot to do and see here in Washington, D.C., which includes the United States Capitol, the Washington Monument, the White House. There's many other things, so you definitely need to come out to Washington, D.C., see a Nationals game here at Nationals Park, and check out all the top attractions here at our nation's capital here in Washington, D.C., since Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. right behind me, we got these mistings. There's no other spot I would rather stand here at Nationals Park right now. It feels great, especially on a hot day to have this kind of mist, whether it's a day game or an evening game. This definitely feels good. So if you come out here at Nationals Park and it's a hot game, I highly recommend standing by one of these. Definitely feels good no matter if you're at a ballpark or you're somewhere else. Right now I'm up here in the upper deck here at Nationals Park, and no matter if you're sitting in the lower deck, but especially in the upper deck, you get a nice view of the Nationals game anywhere you sit in Nationals Park, but especially in the upper deck if you're sitting out there on the first base side, because if you look out in the distance, right in front of me and to the side of me, you could see the Washington Monument, and you could also see the United States Capitol in the distance. All the top attractions here in Washington, D.C. are not that far away from Nationals Park. The Washington Monument and the United States Capitol is only a few blocks away from Nationals Park. So if you come out to Washington, D.C., I highly recommend that you spend a couple days out here so you can check out a Nationals game here at Nationals Park, but you can also check out the attractions in Washington, D.C., since Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States, and we got the United States Capitol to the right of me, the Washington Monument right in front of me, the White House, and all the other attractions. But here at Nationals Park, if you look out here towards center field, we got this big walkway where the concourse is. There's many places to stand and watch the game. It's a big walkway where you can walk back and forth here by the Nationals team store. Also out here in center field, we got the Budweiser Brew House. At the Budweiser Brew House out there in the distance, you have the option of standing in the standing room area, sitting at tables, or sitting in the seats. Also out here in left field, you got the visitors bullpen. Since the Nationals are playing the Dodgers, that's the Dodgers bullpen. Out there in right field is the Nationals bullpen. Out here in center field, there's a grass area. There's also a W, which is the logo of the Washington Nationals. You can also see the sign to the right of the Nationals logo that says All-Star Game Washington, D.C. 2018. Nationals Park hosted the All-Star Game last year. We also got the main scoreboard, and that's the big scoreboard out there in right field. Right below it, underneath the seats, that's the out-of-town scoreboard. And then anywhere from here in the upper deck, whether you're on this side, right behind home plate, or on the other side, here on the third base side or the first base side, you get a really nice view of the Nationals game, and you can see the entire field, and you can see out here towards center field. Now right behind home plate, out there in the distance, is the press box and the broadcaster's booth. Now normally, they do it halfway in between the upper deck and home plate. But the reason why they have it all the way at the top where the upper deck is because you can get really nice views of Washington, D.C. out there in the distance. Sometimes you can see the United States Capitol, the Washington Monument, and you can also see everything that's going on out here in center field at Nationals Park. The only other stadium that has their press box and the broadcaster's booth all the way in the upper deck is PNC Park out in Pittsburgh, since they get a really nice view of downtown Pittsburgh in the distance of all the buildings in downtown Pittsburgh. But that's the reason why the press box and the broadcaster's booth is in the upper deck. But overall, Nationals Park is a very nice ballpark, and I highly recommend coming out here to Nationals Park and checking out a Nationals game. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in the lower level, the upper level, the third base side, the first base side, or behind home plate. So here at Nationals Park, no matter if you're in the lower level or up here in the upper level, right here behind home plate, throughout this walkway, here on the concourse, out on the third base side, the first base side, even in the lower level, there's all these tables and chairs where you can sit and you can turn around and see the whole Nationals game. You get a really nice view of the field and of the entire stadium, and you can watch everything that's going on out there on the main scoreboard out there in the distance. But it's nice to be right behind home plate or be anywhere on the concourse in the lower level or up here in the upper level and be able to sit and be able to watch the game, but also have a nice view of the entire ballpark. Now, here at Nationals Park, you have the option of standing or sitting anywhere on the concourse in the upper level or in the lower level, right behind home plate, the first base side, the third base side. You can stand or sit and still watch the Nationals game. Now, if you really want to see the entire field and the whole Nationals Park, if you get up from these tables and chairs, you can come out here to the distance and look what's right in front of me. Right out here, Nationals Park, you can see the whole field and you can see the entire stadium. So no matter if you're at a table or a seat, or if you're standing or sitting here in the upper level or the lower level, you can sit right behind home plate here on the concourse, or you can come out here, up here to the front, right behind the seats, and watch the entire game from up here. And what a view you get. You can see from the left all the way to the right and out there in center field. So today, here at Nationals Park, I showed you different angles of Nationals Park from the inside and from the outside. Believe it or not, the Nationals were playing the Rockies. So I got to see the Nationals go against the Rockies here in Washington, D.C., just like I saw the Yankees go against the Rockies at Yankee Stadium up in New York City. But overall, Nationals Park is a very nice ballpark from the inside and from the outside. Wherever you watch a game inside Nationals Park, you get a nice view of the field, the game, and the entire stadium. So if there's one thing I can recommend, I highly recommend coming out here to Washington, D.C., checking out a Nationals game here at Nationals Park. But also, I would also recommend spending a couple days out here in Washington, D.C. There's a lot to do and see out here in Washington, D.C. Since Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States, you can go check out the United States Capitol, the Washington Monument, the White House, and all the other main attractions and the top attractions here in Washington, D.C. Also, here at Nationals Park, if you're sitting in the upper deck behind the first base side, you can also see the United States Capitol and the Washington Monument from the distance. So that is something that's unique about Nationals Park. So Nationals Park, Washington, D.C. is another stadium and another city that I can check off my list. Believe it or not, only got 2 more stadiums to see. New York City will be the last city that I go to. So in the next few weeks, this journey will be ending in New York City at Yankee Stadium and at Citi Field. Yankee Stadium will be the final stadium I need to visit. New York City will be the final city I need to visit. And then I can finally say in the next few weeks that I visited all 30 Major League Baseball stadiums across the U.S. and including Toronto. Also, I'll be able to say that I've been to all major cities across the U.S. and I've also been to Toronto. So Nationals Park is another stadium that I can cross off my list. Washington, D.C. is another city I can cross off this list. 2 more stadiums, 1 more city. New York City will be the final stop. And in a couple weeks, this journey will be coming to an end in New York City. Tune in to the next All Sports with Gerardo show next week. I want to say thank you to everybody that watches every episode of All Sports. Subscribe or like my pages on social media at All Sports with Gerardo. Until next time, this is Gerardo coming live from Washington, D.C.